Hello, and welcome to the Designing with Love podcast. I am your host, Jackie Pellegrin, where my goal is to bring you information, tips, and tricks as an instructional designer. Hello, GCU students, alumni, and fellow educators. Welcome to episode 53 of the Designing with Love podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Jim Edwards, a best-selling author and founder of Guaranteed Response Marketing, LLC. Welcome, Jim.
Hey, I'm excited to be here, Jackie. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you. Me too. I'm glad we got connected on Podmatch. It's wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
It's funny when people ask you, what do you do? And you're like, you get that whole big resume thing goes through you. But if I had to summarize it in a single sentence, I am a software developer and an author who helps people figure out how to put words on a page or in an email or out of their mouth that persuade other people to give them money.
I like that. That's great.
So that's what I do in one sentence.
In a nutshell. Great.
Uh-huh.
That's great. Can you share what inspired you to dive into the world of AI and sales copywriting, especially since AI is everywhere, right, today?
Yeah. Now that is going to be a much longer answer. So that will be that would be a pomegranate. The other thing was a nutshell. This is a pomegranate. So, it's funny. I actually graduated from Wayman Mary back in the 80s with a degree in history, and I could have had a minor in Chinese comparative literature if I had not been drunk the whole month of March my senior year and had gone and filled out the paperwork. We're just getting real, Jackie. Okay, I mean,
yeah.
the time limit on the penalties for that has expired. So interestingly enough, when you graduate with a degree in history and you aren't going to get a master's in teaching, you are eminently qualified to go get a job in 100% commission sales. So I went and got a job in sales, and I quit or got fired from 7 different jobs my first 18 months out of school. And the best job I could find was working at Domino's. But then every time I had one of those jobs, I learned something else about sales. I learned about how to talk to people. I learned about how to prospect, how to follow up, how to not see no as no forever, but just no for today. And then I was actually working at a place called Nutrisystem, and when they had physical locations, and I sold a lady, and she said, wow, you'd be really good in my business. And I remember thinking, well, I've been in almost every other business. What do you do? But I said, oh, really? Tell me about it. She told me about the mortgage business. Long story short, I went in the mortgage business and I was 23 years old and I started making about $100,000 a year, which back in 1991, $100,000 a year is a lot of money.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I was doing really well. I met a girl. She told me, hey, you're pretty smart. You should write a book. And I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm smart. I'll write a book. So I took 4 years to write a book. And I had since married that lady, been married to her for 31 years now. And I tried to get a publisher. Nobody would publish my book. I got turned down by 40 different publishers. It was more than that. I just stopped counting at 40. So
Wow.
In 1997, I ran into a fraternity brother at Wayman Mary at Homecoming, and he mentioned that he and his dad had bought a web server. Well, this is when the web was first firing up, really the World Wide Web and stuff. And I asked him a question that he was totally unqualified to answer. And I said, hey, do you think I could sell my book on the internet? And he's like, sure. And you can buy web hosting services from us. And I was paying in 1997, I started paying $125 a month for 10 megabytes of web space.
Okay? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was,
expensive.
Yeah, very. So then I had to figure out how to sell. So everybody was talking about, you got to have this big sticky website. So after I learned how to do HTML, I learned how to do all this stuff. And I had this 40-page website. And for 4 years, I was struggling along. It was just this basic little hobby. And then in 2001, I got exposed to the idea of a one-page sales letter, which is those big, long sales letters that everybody hates, but yet everybody buys from them if they're interested in the thing. So, if somebody reads your sales letter and says, well, it's too long, they're just not in your target audience. So it was funny because I was actually even speaking at that event. I taught a 12-point sales letter, and I said, hey, I can do that, because I was always kind of, even back in school, I was always looking for the underlying formula. I was always looking for the underlying pattern. Like in 11th, I did really well in English. I got the highest grade on my paper in my AP English class. I still hold that little star. But I was always fascinated with the patterns that created the pleasing result. I still remember that the best way to do a summary sentence for a paper is to go, therefore. Your best concluding sentence always starts with therefore. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just took to it like a duck to water. And that night I was staying in a hotel at the conference, and I took his formula and I applied it to my 40-page website, got rid of a bunch of stuff, took some things that I was giving away for free, turned them into bonuses that you only got when you bought. And my sales literally went up 250% overnight, literally.
Wow. That's
amazing. 2.5 times my sales by going from a 40-page website to a 1-page long form sales letter. And I was hooked. And I started reading every book I could read. I started learning, and I was just like, hey, if I can do this with one, let me do another and another and another. And I think in that first year, I wrote 10 sales letters to sell stuff. Some of them hit, some of them didn't. A couple of them hit huge. And so I ended up just being fascinated with not just making stuff and figuring stuff out, but then I had to figure out how to sell it. And then, this is back even before the turn of the century and stuff, but figuring out how to do this stuff on dial-up, then, how to do audio files, then how to do screen capture video, then how to do full motion video, then how to do membership sites, then and all these things. And so what I would do is I'd learn how to do something, and sooner or later, customers would start asking me, hey, how are you doing that? And so I'd turn around and teach a class based on what I had done. But then what I did was I taught them how to sell what I had taught them how to make. So if they had written a book, I've been teaching people how to write books since 2001. Tens of thousands of people I've helped to write and publish their books fast. And so I became kind of the accidental copywriting coach. Then in 2006, I actually licensed my first piece of software from somebody who had a little fill in the blank thing called, I don't remember what his thing was called, but I private labeled it as quick sales copy. You can't, the user can't see that, but I'm showing you the thing. That's what I look like 35 years ago. And so, that's when I got hooked on how can, because copywriting is such a repeatable formula, it has very specific formulas. I said, there's got to be a way we can use software to help create the first draft. And so I became fascinated with frameworks and with patterns and blueprints and templates and all these different things. And so in 2006, I hired a developer who's been with me ever since. Side note, when I hired this kid, he's not a kid anymore, but when I hired him, he was 18 years old and living in Siberia.
Oh, wow.
And I found him through a site called Elance.
Oh, yeah.
And so you remember Elance from way back in the day?
Yep, yeah. I do.
Then they became Rent-A-Coder, and then I don't know what Upwork. Anyway, I digress. So, we just started developing this platform. And so in 2016, we had developed this platform really far. We morphed it into another platform called Funnel Scripts that had over 100,000 users, and it was all about sales copy. And so sold that for a while, and about 3.5, 4 years ago, GPT-2 it gets a little muddy, but GPT-2 came out. I was like, hey, that's kind of cute. Maybe there's some future there. And I started developing my own large language model. Because when GPT-3 came out, Microsoft grabbed it and put it under wraps. Like they were the only person to license it. You couldn't use GPT-3. And then they came out with some stuff with OpenAI.
Right.
But long story short, I spent a ton of money and practically lit up the entire eastern half of the United States with all these servers that we were burning on to train this language model. And I spent a lot of money. My wife still reminds me of the money that we spent on that. And so I got this thing all trained up. And a week later, they came out with OpenAI having an API into GPT-3. And then right after that, 3.5. And so it was what it was. So we took my existing software that I'd been developing then for 16 years, and we just plugged it into OpenAI. And so it was a very natural thing for us. I was very used to getting information out of people's heads about themselves, their customers, writing all this stuff, and plugging it into frameworks and some dynamic content stuff that did a really good job of getting people a first draft. But now taking that exact same input and then plugging in the AI, they get a phenomenal input. Because with our stuff, it's not like going over to ChatGPT and saying, hey, I need a sales letter for real estate agents for my course on how to get more listings. And then you expect ChatGPT to just magically give you a finished product that you don't have any idea whether it's any good or not. Our stuff, I might be feeding this thing a 30,000 character prompt. Whereas most people that download, hey, I got the HubSpot free ebook on 10,000 amazing ChatGPT prompts, and it's really good. And they're all like one sentence.
Yeah.
So that is how I became interested in AI. I saw it as the next natural extension of what I'd already been doing for almost 20 years.
Hello, I have some exciting news to share with all of my listeners. There is a feature called fan mail. What this allows you to do is send me a text message anytime during the episode. There's a link located at the top of the description in each episode, and it says send Jackie a text message. So when you click on that link, you'll be able to send me a message letting me know what you thought about the episode and if you have any ideas for future episode content as well. I look forward to seeing your text messages. Thank you. Wow, that's great. I love that. And you were able to build that blueprint, and then when the technology caught up with what you were already doing, it was, like you said, a natural fit, and you were able to interweave the technology as it got better. So that's great.
100%.
I love that.
And so now we have like 5 different models that we're plugged into. So the way I created the software, I can plug into anybody. So if, Nick and Tony's auto body and large language llama model upstairs turns out to be the best in the world, I can just plug into there.
Wow. That's awesome. I love that. Wow. So it's great because then someone who, like myself, we were talking about before we started this recording, how, somebody that may not have realized they could write a book or be an author can take content maybe that they already have, like I have from my podcast, and that idea can come to life now like it never has before, right? With the help of these tools that are available.
100%. And the big thing is that you don't, for something like copywriting and things that you're not going to be doing all the time, trying to learn how to be a prompt engineer to have it give you specifically copywriting stuff, ads, marketing content, all that stuff, and then knowing whether it's any good or not, that's the challenge.
Right.
And so that's what we remove for people. You don't have to be a great copywriter in order to create great copy. All you have to do though is know exactly who your ideal customer is and what motivates them, what their hot buttons are, what gets them emotional, their problems, their questions, their roadblocks, all that. Then you got to know your offer. What are you trying to sell? I mean, what makes it special? What makes it unique? What gives you a strategic advantage over other people? And then you also got to know yourself. How does your story, your background, your uniqueness factor into all that stuff? That's what you need to know. But then you can load all that into the software and it takes it from there and integrates it and just gives you what you need.
Wow. That's great. Yeah, because there's probably not a lot of people that like me that have two master's degrees. I have a bachelor's in business, and then I have an MBA. And I was going to go into business and go into market research, and then things shifted, and I ended up pivoting and changing completely. And then went into education, got my second master's in instructional design, and now I've been doing that and been in higher ed for almost 2 decades now. So it's kind of weird how I thought I was going to go one direction and had that first master's, but the MBA wasn't a waste. It's helped me in what I'm doing now. So it's not like it was all for nothing, right? So
Sure.
it's
No
kind of a unique
education
thing.
is a waste.
Right. Exactly. Yep. That's so true. So you just never know where life takes you, and then where you can actually share that information and be able to give that unique perspective that people are looking for. So that's neat. I like that. I love that. So for those who might doubt their intelligence, I know I used to for a while, their capabilities, what empowering message do you want to convey about their potential for success?
So when it comes to AI or just in general?
Maybe just in general. Yeah. Like if they're doubting, that they can be an author, write a book, or, do what you had talked about with being able to reach that audience that they want to reach and be capable of doing that, especially if they're not familiar with sales and copywriting and stuff.
So here's the thing. And the great thing about what's happening right now is that there's a lot of change going on. And because there's so much change going on, I'm not going to say the rules don't apply, but the restrictions that were there before have loosened up because the playing field is moving. The game board is changing. So I'm going to tell you a real quick story from back in 1991. So when I got into the mortgage business, the week that I got into the mortgage business, there was a huge change in the way that FHA loans were made. And FHA, Federal Housing Administration loans, they're heavily insured government loans, allow people to basically buy a house with a 3% down payment. But they totally changed the way they calculated the mortgage insurance and how people qualified for that loan. And so that change meant, and real estate agents had to be able to know how to figure out if first-time homebuyers and lower-income homebuyers were going to be able to buy a house or not, and figure it out pretty quick. So me being, 2 years out of college, less than 2 years out of college, and not afraid of algebra, I figured out a way to be able to calculate those mortgage insurance premiums and stuff with one simple little calculation, and it worked perfectly. It was just math. So what I did was I ran around to all these different real estate agents that I was going to try and get business from, because I had learned, hey, you create a little farm, create a territory, and no today doesn't mean no tomorrow. So I need to go out and meet these people and bring some sort of value to the table for them. Well, lo and behold, when I showed up and I had a little flyer with a headline of how to calculate FHA loans in 60 seconds or less, even if you suck at math, people were like, who is this kid? But then I just started teaching people how to do this thing. And that got me in. I was not an annoying pest who was there just trying to get them to send loans. I became a welcome guest because I brought value. And very quickly, I parlayed that into, hey, coming back and adding value to people's lives. Sometimes it was something simple, sometimes it was major, but My point is, because things are changing so fast and no one can keep up with all of it, the first thing you got to do is figure out, who do you want to serve? Who are you going to help? Who are you going to be a blessing to? Whether it's like you, Jackie, helping people with instructional design, flavored with some, a little bit of woo-woo and some self-actualization and some other cool stuff, which
Right.
is perfect. That's your flavor, right?
Right.
And so you got to figure out who you're going to serve, what your flavor's going to be, and then you just go at it with a servant's mentality of, what do these people need, and how can I help them get it? Because what's happening right now, I mean, whether it has to do with AI or anything else, I mean, how many old people have no clue how to use social media the right way? I
My
mean, how
mom.
many people could, how many people could use some help in doing realistic social media stuff in their business?
Right.
I mean, if you were in your 20s and really understood Instagram, TikTok, and all that stuff, and then had a track record of being able to get views and stuff, you could go get somebody to hire you to help them. And if you hired, if you got 10 people to hire you at 1/3 of what they would pay a full-time person, you'd be making 3 times what you would make. Okay, or more.
Right. Yeah.
And so the key is, most people look at what they don't have, and therefore they just get more of that. But if you look at what you do have going for you, you'd be surprised. But here's the big thing I will tell you. People pay to solve problems, and they pay to get results. And if you can help people solve a problem, if you can help people to get a result, whatever it is, they'll pay you. And because there's so much change going on right now, nobody can keep up with all of it. So if you can just figure out how to use AI for one specific thing and become really, really good at that, you can go out and have people hire you or pay attention to you. Or I always default to, hey, I'm going to go find a customer and sell them something. But that's always been my mindset. And so, I mean, the biggest thing I would tell you is, if you doubt yourself, look back at the stuff that you have done. Any time that you ever are getting down on yourself and you're not believing you can do something, you've done stuff. I mean, I can't tell you, when I was a theater kid, I was really big into theater. And my junior year in high school, I beat out a bunch of kids for a part in the school play that I became the Duke of Ephesus. Okay. And then
Wow.
we ended up going to the Folger Theater in Washington, D.C. for their national high school Shakespeare competition. And I ended up winning Best Supporting Actor for the whole competition.
That's amazing.
And that was a big deal. But
Yeah.
you know what? You know how many times I have looked back on that? I mean, I remember sitting on my bed with a tape recorder, learning my lines and doing all that, finding that frame of reference of stuff you've done in the past to give you confidence that, hey, I may have not have done this, but I've done other stuff that was harder. I can figure this out. Another thing you can do is, I'm big in making asset lists. And everyone's like, asset list, it means money in the bank, or, nope. Asset list is, I'm alive and on planet Earth. I got access to the internet. I got access to a library. I got, my sister, who can help me with stuff to figure things out. I clearly remember I was a syndicated newspaper columnist for 10 years. And I got that job. Well, it wasn't even a job, but I got that column because I was too stupid to know that I shouldn't be asking somebody to allow me to have a newspaper column, which then I would go syndicate myself. But I said, okay, I got my dad who can help me edit my articles. I've got my sister who can help me. I've got a college degree. It ain't that hard to write 500 words. And I mean, I've got access to the library, to the internet, to this computer, just start making these asset lists. And if you're focused on what you got, you're going to be able to make good stuff happen. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for or not, Jackie, but
I like that. Yeah. Look at what you have instead of what you don't have. Yeah. And focus on that. Yeah. That's great. I love that. So could you share an inspiring success story of someone who used your techniques to transform their business? You kind of went over that a little bit, but do you have like a specific story of someone that came to you and just all of a sudden?
Here's a recent one by a gentleman named Larry Carter. So Larry he was career Air Force. Then he was had another whole entire career as a chaplain for law enforcement. And so he wanted to break into coaching chaplains for police, firefighter, first responder roles. And he said, I want to write a book. And so he went through our process. He wrote his book, Crossing into Purpose, Where Service Meets Significance. He never thought he'd ever be able to write a book. I mean, we've helped countless people go through this. And he contacted me, though, and this is where he was like, oh, I got to sell a gajillion copies. He contacted me after he sold 50 copies. He said, I just want you to know, I've sold 50 copies of my book, and I'm really proud of myself. So I had him on my podcast, and we were talking. He sold 50 copies, but he also got a chief of police. Because of selling those copies, he had a chief of police bring him in to do training, and the dude's building a 6-figure training business selling a $14 book that if he sells just a few hundred, because how many people are actually first responder police, for firefighter chaplains? His market's not all that big, but he's building a 6-figure business around a book that he wrote using AI. But more important than that, because I'm going to digress for just a second. Okay, so we're going to put a pin in this. Most people, Jackie, are trying to figure out how to use AI to replace themselves.
That's true. Yeah.
And that is a really stupid thing to do.
I would agree.
You should be using AI to eliminate, let's call it, mundane intellectual labor from your life. All right. So responding to emails or drafting dopey email responses and stuff. Yeah. Use AI for that. But you certainly should not be treating AI like it's some giant vending machine that's just going to figure out how to walk like you, talk like you, think like you, and then going to spit stuff out to you that you can turn around and show to the world like, look what I did, mommy, and then expect to get a reward.
Right.
Because it's not going to happen. If everybody else is going to the same water fountain known as ChatGPT or Grok or Llama or whatever, okay, Gemma, if you try to replace yourself with AI, you're probably going to be able to do it, and then you will have absolutely no value to anyone. We need to start looking at AI as a way to amplify our voice and accelerate our ability to get the stuff done that we're supposed to do. Not to replace ourselves so that we're going to try and live Tim Ferriss's book with not the 5-hour work week, but the 5-minute work week. Oh, I can set up some agents and then I'll sell agents. And just all this BS you see on YouTube about, how to make $5,963 a day. Copy me. It's all, can I say the BS word, or would you prefer I didn't? It's all bullshit, Jackie. It's not true. Because if those dudes were all making $10,000 a day with AI, they wouldn't be making some janky video on YouTube to teach you how to make $10,000 a day using AI. They just wouldn't. Okay.
They say if it's too good to be true, it usually is.
Well, and it's and okay, from another standpoint, if you replace yourself with AI, what are you going to do? You can only play so much Xbox. You can only eat so many Oreos.
Yeah.
You can only look at so much idiotic stuff on Facebook or social media. At some point, where's your life going to have any meaning whatsoever?
There's no purpose anymore. Yeah.
Right. Now, that doesn't mean I can't use AI to help me just put together the stuff that I need to put together to amplify my voice or to share my message. I do it all the time. I do it every day, but it's an accelerant. It's, you know, is it more noble to cut down a tree with an axe? Or if you can get a chainsaw and cut that puppy down, limb it up, log it real quick and get the same job done in 15 minutes as opposed to 3 hours, is it more noble to type it up at a typewriter or to know how to feed in your stuff into AI to be able to then have it spit back out your stuff, and then you take it, curate it, and then you do something with it?
Right. Yeah,
And I think
exactly.
there's a fork in the road that most people have already taken who are using AI. They've either decided instinctively, hey, you know what, I need to use this just to accelerate my message, like what we were talking about in the pre-interview, that you're taking your podcast stuff and you're taking some things that you've done and you're having AI help you turn it into a book. You didn't say to me, hey, Jim, I found a prompt on Facebook that I can give to ChatGPT and it wrote a book for me. That's not what you said. You used it to help you get it done faster. The other fork is literally oblivion. It's literally oblivion that you are going to try and replace yourself with this thing. And so that's just dumb. So what Larry's doing, back to Larry. Okay, now we're back
I
from
love
that
that.
side trip.
Yeah, I love this story.
Larry chose to shortcut the process instead of being like me with my first book, where it took me 4 years to write my first book. My most recent book took me 5 days, and it's still my book. It's just faster. And that's so anybody who is using AI to amplify and accelerate the work that they are supposed to be doing is being successful,
Absolutely.
whether they're
Yeah.
using our tools or not.
hmm Yeah, like I mentioned, I do it with my podcast now, and it's sped up my work exponentially to be able to just say, "Hey, can you give me ideas for some episode, uh, you know, ideas and things like that?" And then I have it help me write an outline, and then I fill in all the details. And of course, I check the work because it hallucinates. We know that, so it doesn't get things correct. So that's what I tell my students too. Don't take it for what it is. Just use it as a tool. And yeah,
I don't think it hallucinates. I think it's stoned out of its gourd.
probably. Yeah.
Sometimes, but here, the way I visualize it, and y'all can't see this, but I want you to envision a battery, okay? And that battery has a certain amount of juice in it. And let's say it's represented by some red lines. So you got like 10 red lines of juice. And in the past, if you wanted to, let's just say, write an article. So when I was writing my syndicated newspaper article, I would literally take 4 hours on a Sunday to write this thing. And so you've got to create the idea, then you got to do the outline, then you got to do the first draft, then you got to, kind of massage it and work it and come up with a second draft. Well, as you're going through that whole thing to try and get to the final draft, you're losing more and more and more and more of that energy, and you're depleting the battery until there's not that much left.
Right.
Well, now, if you're using AI, is it cheating to have AI help you come up with 10 different ideas for this week's article? In my opinion, no. I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
So if I can
Yeah.
get my ideas in about 2 minutes to choose from, as opposed to thinking about it for 20 minutes, I've saved a whole bunch of time, energy, and effort, psychically, energetically, otherwise. If I can say, hey, these are the 5 things I want to talk about, or give me some ideas, some things to talk about. Okay, those are 5 things I want to talk about. Now let's come up with an outline. Okay, so now I want to talk about this and this and this and this, and maybe even I dictate it into the AI. So I just start talking out the points, and then I tell it, hey, you know what? I've talked for a while. Jackie, I know it's hard to believe, but I don't have any problem talking for as long as someone will listen. But I just talk it out and then tell it, hey, now what I want you to do is clean this up. It's a transcript. Make it sound like it was written in a friendly, whatever style. Well, now AI can take my thoughts and turn my thoughts into the draft of that blog post or that article. It's all my stuff. Just AI is accelerating the process. And then it hands it to me. I'm like, yeah, that sounds pretty much like me. Now I'm just going to go through and do a quick edit. Well, hey, instead of burning out 9.5 of my 10 bars, I've only used up 5. So now I have still psychic, other energy, and time left over to do the most important thing, especially when we're talking about creating content or sales copy. I have time and energy to go promote it. Because see, here's the problem, Jackie. We have been trained, especially people, liberal arts, that kind of thing. As soon as I can hold it up and say, here it is, it's done, give me my A, I'm finished. But in the world of content creation, content marketing, sales copy, getting that thing done is just the beginning.
Right, exactly.
Because if you make it and don't promote it, you might as well have just been on the couch playing Xbox eating fudge rounds, because you're not going to get any good result from it.
It's just going to collect dust, right? And just sit on a shelf.
Not even that. It's just going to collect up electron dust.
Yeah, exactly. If it's yeah, right.
So here's the mental shift that we all are going to have to make. We need to shift from thinking that being a creator is what we want to be. And we need to make the mental shift from creator to curator.
I love that.
It has elements of creator. We cause the thing that we want to have to be created by using the tools, and then we have to be a curator. So instead of spending 90% of the time coming up with the thing, spend 30% of your time coming up with the thing, and then 70% of your time making sure it's good and getting it out there.
Right.
That's the difference between the creator mindset and the curator mindset.
It's a complete mind shift now. Yeah. We're turning it on its head, right?
But you can't, nobody rewards, just, I could start sending all my stuff to Jackie and be like, hey, can I have an A, professor? Can I have an A? She's like, yeah, here's an A. She type an A in the Gmail back, and it's like, thanks. I can't eat it. I mean, you can't spend it, but sure, here's your A, Jim. You can start selling A's for like $100.
Right.
I don't want to get you in trouble, but I mean,
well, it's like with the tests, with students, that I could search for classes that I help with GCU, and all of a sudden you type in the title of the course or the course code, and you find the quizzes online, and so it's a constant challenge of, that. And so, it's like, quizzes have value, but if people can just sell them on the internet, then it takes away from that. So, yep.
I think it's all how they're going to solve it. It's all going to have to go back to Blue Book. Yeah. And everybody's going to have to sit there with their fat little pen and fill the thing out. And you're going to have to wand them like at the airport for any kind of smart device. Like, okay, give me your earbuds, take your watch off. You're going to have to inspect their glasses to make sure they don't have the heads up display that they're able to murmur to the thing to show it. Yeah. And the problem is that kids these days, Jackie, my grandson's heading to VMI this Friday. So he's starting as a freshman. You can't cheat yourself. In other words, if you could find the tests online, sure, look at them. If you could find, but ultimately the whole purpose here of education, the whole purpose of content creation is for you to grow as a person, for you to, it's great. You can go find the answer, but if you don't know, if you haven't developed that muscle to be able to create the answer, to create the thing, or to know if it's right or not, it doesn't even, you don't even have to be the one who knows how to create the answer. You need to know how to know whether it's correct. Exactly. Or it's any good. Yeah. That's the ultimate skill where we're trying to get these people and kids and adults and everybody to now. I don't care how you got the answer anymore. I really don't. as long as you know how the answer is created and whether the end product is any good or not.
Exactly. Yeah. That's so true. Yeah, because if we, so many instructors today, they want to police AI. And I know some instructors at GCU that are just like, no, hands off. And I'm like, yeah, but if you tell them, no, they can't use it while they're in school and while you can teach them to use it ethically, then when they get in the workforce, they're going to just want to still cheat. Right. And so teaching them how to use it, how to have boundaries around it while they're in school and say, hey, you know what, if you cheat and with your paper, you're doing yourself a disservice and you're doing everybody else that you're wanting to serve a disservice in the future. Yeah, so it's very interesting how I've shifted the mindset with my students. They're like, can I use it? And I'm like, yes, you can use it, but just know how to use it ethically and know that it's a tool and it's not replacing us. You know,
100%.
hopefully that fear goes away, because so many people are like, is my job going to go away? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think it's just, for me, it's a virtual assistant. It's a way to, like you displayed so well and talked about, so it's great. I love it. So as we kind of cap this off, what are some tips and advice you can share with those who are currently in the master's program that I teach for in instructional design at Grand Canyon University?
So I would just say that what you are learning about teaching people how to learn and structuring things so people will learn is going to be more important moving forward than ever, because anybody can go to now ChatGPT or Google or whoever's version of a large language model. And I call it data versus soul. Okay. Data I see as an acronym. You go to GPT and it gives you data, which stands for default answers to anything. All right. Anybody can go get a default answer that just sounds about good enough. It's Wikipedia level. But what is really going to make a difference and make people pay attention to you and really want to be a part of what you're doing is what we refer to as soul content. And soul content is, again, an acronym for stories, observations, unique perspective, and lessons learned. In the end, if you want people to pay attention to what you're teaching them, you got to be able to tell a story to make it relevant. You got to be able to give them a unique perspective on the data in order to make it interesting. You've got to be able to share observations that only can come from experience, that again are going to dimensionalize that data. And then lessons learned, the ultimate thing of I've been there, I've done that, I got the t-shirt, here's what's happened, and here's what you can learn from it. And interestingly enough, if I use the example of, if I tell you the story of the very first book I ever sold online back before the turn of the century, literally. And now this century is a quarter of a century past, which
Crazy.
really makes me feel old.
Yeah, me too.
But if I tell you about the shock when I saw, oh my God, there's an order here. And then when I realized I had no way to process the credit card payment because I didn't think anybody was ever going to buy it. And then I called my aunt at the Williamsburg Outlet Mall and asked her if I could process my credit card orders through her craft mall, and how she said, sure. And then I had to explain to this guy somewhere that bought this book why his credit card details were going to reflect Country Treasures instead of Selling Your Home Alone, the book. And all through that, I realized if I could get one person to buy from me, I could get 1,000 people to buy from me, and it was going to change my life. And if I tell you that story and then I say, and by the way, here are 5 tips on how to make your very first book sale. Do you care if ChatGPT wrote those 5 tips?
No, I don't.
No, because that story got you so hooked, anything else I do slides right under your anti-GPT radar. You don't care because I'm sharing a piece of my soul with you.
Yeah.
And that is going to be one of the most important things that anyone who is an educator, an educational design person, or anybody who's putting together anything to teach anybody anything, you better have some soul up front to give some context to the stuff on the back end, that it doesn't matter who created it because it's all just data.
Right. I love that. That's great advice because, especially now in this data-driven world that we're in, right? Yeah, we have to have that human experience. We can't lose that human experience and that soul. That's so important. Absolutely. Right.
100%.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you, Jim, for your time and your expertise. I appreciate it. I'd love to have you back on the show and we can talk about some other topics because
yeah, that'd be fun.
Once I get into some of these things and we start talking, it's like, oh, we could expand upon this. And there's so many different great things that we can delve into a little bit more. So I'd love to do that sometime.
I'd be happy to. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Thank you for taking some time to listen to this podcast episode today. Your support means the world to me. If you'd like to help keep the podcast going, you can share it with a friend or colleague, leave a heartfelt review, or offer a monetary contribution. Every act of support, big or small, makes a difference, and I'm truly thankful for you.